Across the board.
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 You're listening to Across the Board. Buckle up, because things are about to get interesting.
So,
What are we talking about today?
we are talking about Luigi Mangione, or maybe Mangione. I'm not sure. I'm not Italian, so I don't know how to pronounce that. Yeah, so this dude allegedly, we have to say allegedly so we don't get sued because we can't be defamating anybody. Allegedly, this dude decided to kill the CEO of United Healthcare,
Right.
Brian Thompson. I feel like his name's not known well enough. It's kind of fucked up. Sorry, don't mean to laugh, but it's actually kind of screwed up that his name is not well known. But anyway, yeah, we're getting into a little bit of the story of Luigi and who he was and why somebody from a wealthy, prominent family would actually do this, which allegedly actually do this.
Allegedly.
Would allegedly do this. Yeah. So, all right. Our story starts way back in the day. Well, we're not going to go that far back in the day, but so his grandfather, this is where the wealth started. His grandfather was Nicholas Mangione, or Mangione Sr., born in Baltimore in 1925. His parents were immigrants. He was a poor immigrant boy in 1925. He served in the Navy. We don't know very many details, but we know that he served in the Navy in the South Pacific. And when he came home, started building all these different businesses.
Do we know what kind of business he was in, or?
So there's more than a few businesses. There's like a long list. Well, there was a decent sized list of them. Everything from healthcare to golf courses, country clubs. He did real estate. Like I think that was his primary thing. Was he was a real estate developer.
Has had his hand in a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So
Okay.
like one of the projects that he had worked on was this large real estate development. It was like hundreds of acres that he turned into a country club. And yeah, so the guy was a good businessman. He was an aggressive businessman.
Yeah, I was just going to say he was probably pretty aggressive about growing his businesses. That's why he kind of dabbled in everything.
Absolutely. He must have just been sick of being poor and decided to do something about it, had the opportunity. And
aren't we
here
all?
are. Yeah, well. So but he was well liked. He was respected in the community. He was known to help people. So, he was described as a good person, whatever. He had 10 kids.
Wow. 10?
10 kids, 37 grandchildren.
Wow.
I guess one of his other passions was having
Kids.
children. Yeah.
Big
Apparently.
family. I mean, that's kind of...
But it's kind of normal for back then, right?
Well, yes, but I also feel like that's pretty common maybe in Italian families, right? Somewhat.
Maybe they're known for big families, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, because, I've known a lot of Italians that have big families,
Yeah,
gatherings and things
absolutely.
like that, so.
But yeah, Nick Sr., 10 kids, 37 grandchildren.
Wow.
And actually, I read somewhere that all 10 of his kids actually operate the businesses that he built
To this day?
Yeah,
still?
like all the businesses, none of the kids did anything else. They all just
Right.
went into the family business of
Kind of took it over.
running things. Yeah. So
okay, well, that makes sense.
Well, at
if
least
you have that opportunity, why not?
yeah, at least he set them up. I mean,
10 kids, 37 grandchildren. Hopefully one of them will be able to take over something.
Absolutely, yeah. So sadly, he passed away in 2008. He was 83 years old, complications from a stroke that he had.
Wow.
So one of the 10 children, actually the second of the 10, was the father of Luigi, who was Louis Mangione, born in February 9th, born on February 9th, 1953. He's one of the ones that, obviously was running the businesses with his other brothers. I don't know how it broke apart. Where is everybody running all the businesses, or did each one kind of take over one business or whatever? Yeah, so I'm not sure how that all worked out. But anyway, Luigi's mom was Kathleen Zanino Kathleen Zanino Mangione. She's one of 8. Again, going back to the large families from another influential Italian American family. So they own a bunch of businesses, country clubs, golf courses, assisted living facilities.
Again, kind of dabbling in everything, taking over business from their parents and so on.
Well, and I think a lot of these businesses were kind of left behind from Nick Sr. I don't know how. How it's split.
We don't know how it's split apart, but we know that they took on some of the businesses. Yeah,
but I don't know if any of these are like new businesses that they opened, or if they were all just inherited from Luigi's grandfather. So we'll just leave it there. And they were known for philanthropy as well. Even so, the Greater Baltimore Medical Center has a family center building that literally has a plaque at the front of it that says, donated by Nicholas and Mary Mangione, being the grandparents. So they're families well known, well liked. They're respected people. It's strange because usually when you hear about things like this, it's usually like somebody that, troubled kid, came from a broken home, blah, blah, blah. This is definitely not the case.
He came from a very prominent family in the area.
So it's strange, and it doesn't fit the mold. You know what I mean? It's like it's different than everybody else or every other alleged murderer. Let's go to Luigi then. So he's one of 3. Obviously, times are changing. Not having 10 kids anymore.
Only 3.
Just 3. He was born on May 6th, 1998. He's the youngest child of Louis and
26,
Kathleen.
Right? Yeah, 26.
26 years old. Yep. He went to, an private all boys school, the Gilman School.
He kind of grew up privileged, and
absolutely. He was taking
all the
care
things
of.
that come from having such a prominent family.
Yeah, no, he had the opportunities. He had what he needed to be successful. He was valedictorian at his school. He was smart, like literally a smart guy. And so smart to where he ended up with both a bachelor's and a master's degree in computer science.
Wow.
So not a dumb guy by any means.
Yeah.
He wasn't just skating
Very
by
smart.
on his family's money. He was actually making something of himself.
Absolutely.
He
kind of taking his privilege and making it work for him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like using the opportunities
that he was given growing up, and actually using those things
not
to make something of himself.
It or not
absolutely.
relying on inheriting a family business and just taking things easy. So he definitely was active, and he's so what do we got here? Started a video game development club while he was at college at University of Pennsylvania. His friends said that he was smart. He was a normal guy. Nothing out of the ordinary. No red flags there. We know that at one point he was employed by TrueCar as a data engineer, and apparently in 2023, so they asked TrueCar about this after the fact, and they said that he hadn't been employed there since 2023. So here's where it gets a little unclear, a little foggy. So we're not 100% sure what Luigi did after this. We know that at one point he was living in Hawaii at this place called Surf Break. It was like a little surfing community thing. He was there sometime in 2023. We don't know the exact dates. My limited Google research.
And again, there's not that much information out there yet.
Well, and I'm sure as everybody keeps digging, and there'll be
as
more
time progresses,
details.
I think there'll be more details to come.
But I also feel like there isn't I don't think anybody's that concerned with the details of where he was, what he was doing before, that one morning. He lived at this place in Hawaii called Surf Break. He left there. So he had a back injury. We're not sure when. It probably happened while he was out in Hawaii, because otherwise, why would you move to Hawaii to go surfing if you already had a back injury?
Yeah.
But I'm assuming, again, I don't know. Don't take this for gospel. I'm assuming that injury happened while in Hawaii. He was probably surfing or doing something, probably hurt his back.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
So because of the surfing, the hikes that he was going on, I know there's like that one picture out there where he's like hiking with his shirt off, fucking showing off his fucking 18 pack. But yeah, so he ended up leaving surf break. He's like, I can't surf anymore. I can't hike anymore. There's no point here. But then he moves into, and this is February of 2024. We don't know, again, I don't know when he moved into surf break, but he goes into this like luxury high-rise apartment in February of 2024.
And where was this?
This was also in Hawaii.
In Hawaii, okay.
In Honolulu, specifically.
Okay.
So and then again, it starts getting a little unclear, so we'll kind of go back there, but it's February of 2024, he moves in this place. We don't know when he left this place or if he ever really did. We don't know if he still has a lease at this apartment that, we're not sure what happens after he moves in there. We don't know if he ends up moving back to the mainland or, maybe he lived in California because his mom thinks he lived in California. But we don't know for sure. So, basically, like as all this is going down, so he had a back injury, required surgery, had a bunch of screws and plates and stuff put in his back or his spine. There was even there's a background image on an X account, formerly Twitter, on an X account that shows like an X-ray, and they are assuming that's his X account, basically because of whatever. I mean, we're assuming that's not a fake account. We're assuming it's his name is whatever's on there, but. So yeah, there's even like an X-ray image of his back with the screws and the plates and stuff in there. Friends were saying that he didn't really complain about it. He wasn't he wasn't being a crybaby about his back injury, but he did apparently miss out on stuff.
Yeah, that must have been tough.
Well,
being so young as well, and
trying
being
to be
so active.
Yeah, trying to be social and yeah,
and having something so traumatic happen to your body at such a young age, and you not being able to do the things that you want, I'm sure it really affected him in some way.
Well, and I can imagine, I mean, I guess anybody can, but you could probably imagine a world in where this just kind of made him bitter.
I'm sure.
I don't know, we don't really know what, but like we know he was on Reddit talking about his chronic back pain and stuff. So like, obviously this takes a toll on you mentally.
Yeah, of course. And of course we're just speculating here, but just as, any human being, going from being able to do whatever you want and then that kind of being taken away from you is really difficult.
Yeah. Well, and that's the funny thing too, is like he was not only, at the age where he should be socially active, but he was also physically active. Like he was hiking, he was surfing.
Yes.
Things that I would assume
he enjoyed doing.
If he moved to Hawaii, he probably really loved surfing, right?
Yeah.
And now
being
all of a sudden
out
that's
in
taken
nature
from him.
yeah,
exactly. So I can kind of see like I can kind of see how this may have been part of the trigger. I mean, I don't think it necessarily. I don't think this was the whole story. Obviously, no matter what you're going through in life, you have to also have that extra little to get you to do some fucking crazy shit. But allegedly, but so I assume this had to play a role in his villain story, his villain origin story, whatever you want to call it. But then it gets so, and this is where the information starts coming up where you're like, maybe this is what's going on. So like he had put up 2 reviews of books on this book review site called Goodreads. It's his picture, it's his name, so we're assuming that this was him. One of the 2 reviews that he left was about a book by the Unabomber, Theodore Kaczynski.
Okay.
So he does in his review say something along the lines of like he was a violent person, blah, blah, blah. But he's also like, he was maybe a political revolutionary.
Maybe
he
kind of
wasn't a horrible person kind of thing, like, so you kind of see where maybe all of a sudden he starts like flipping. He's no longer this like good kid, and he starts getting these like weird ideas, maybe, allegedly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that just because of that just because of that comment that he was losing his mind or going crazy or whatever. But usually you don't jump on a public forum and post something like that where people can read it unless you're all in on that idea. You know what I mean? It's like, even if you're sitting around with a couple of friends and you're like, well, I could see why this guy did that.
Yes. Also considering that he's also young. So, we can take that into consideration as well.
Yeah.
But again,
I mean, there is something to be said about how like the younger generation's a little anti-corporate America and, the establishment,
you
but
can't blame them though, honestly.
yeah, I mean,
It's just in my opinion.
sure. But yeah, there's that. I mean, maybe that was a
Right.
red flag, maybe not. I would consider that a bit of a red flag, but maybe that's just because I'm looking at this, in hindsight. Obviously, it's like he could have posted that and gone on to cure cancer and been fucking a Nobel Prize winner and nobody would have thought anything of it. But seeing that now, you're like, shit, that was the first sign. You know what I mean? So anyway, let's talk about the shooting. So we don't know from the time that he moves into this high-rise apartment in February of 2024 up until November, end of November, early December. We don't really know what he's doing, what he's up to. We don't know if he's working. We don't know if he's having fun. We don't know if he's doing drugs. We don't know if he's getting hooked up with the wrong people. We just have nothing on him.
There's no background information on any of the things that were
any
of the happenings.
Based on my research, I didn't find anything. So
Okay.
we don't know what actually happened there.
Okay.
All we know is that at some point in November, Luigi's mom calls the police department in San Francisco and basically says, hey, I think my kid is missing. I haven't heard from him since July.
And I'm sorry, what month was this?
This was in November.
So they hadn't had contact
Since July.
in 3-4 months, pretty
Yeah.
much. Well,
Well, the assumption is that she assumed, and for whatever reason, maybe this is what he told her, maybe there was, I don't know what, but as far as she knew, he was living in San Francisco and working there.
so she had no idea that he was in Hawaii, or did she?
See, that's where we don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe sometime between February and July, maybe he did move to San
I
Francisco.
wonder if this was a natural occurrence for him and his family, where they wouldn't speak
for months.
and
Yeah,
if they
maybe.
even had a close relationship, and how his upbringing was in that sense with his parents or with his family.
Who knows, really? I mean, that's the
so-
thing. Yeah, it's obviously
There are rumors going around, obviously, but nothing is really solidified or,
Well,
or
and-
factual that's available yet.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing too, is being that they are like a wealthy, prominent family, they're not, all over the news blabbing about stuff.
But here's the thing, though. If you're a prominent family, if you're, a lot of what I've seen, in my opinion, is a lot of prominent families are very close knit. They, speak to each other a lot. They converse. They're always involved with each other. I don't think they want to give the general public that idea of we're not a close family. So it's kind of weird to me that him and his mom didn't speak for several months, and she didn't really know, or if she did, where he was currently living or where he was. That's just kind of really weird to me.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
don't, yeah.
But then again, we're close with our families, so we
Right.
don't know how that dynamic is. I mean, obviously there are families that don't
I'm just
speak
saying
for years.
it's not very, stereotypically, it's not very normal to
I guess so.
not connect with your parents growing up that way. But, everyone lives different
course,
lives.
of course.
It's just some things that I've noticed.
Well, and I mean, of course, we're just speculating, but
Right.
it's at the end of the day, it could be, maybe they had a falling out. Maybe who knows?
And I'm sure once there's more information on him, all of this stuff's going to come out at some point.
Well, and I think, yeah, and I feel like at some point,
It's so early now.
somebody's probably going to write a book at
Right.
some point. And it might just be him too. Who knows? I mean, it's like,
I mean, I can tell you that. I'm sure he will at some point.
Probably a good idea, Luigi.
Right?
Just it's a little advice, especially
Suggestion.
People want to know, so maybe just spill the beans.
Yeah. What's going on in your head? Let us know.
Yeah. So, and this is the funny thing is, there was no record of him living in San Francisco. We don't know anything about him.
Like ever.
Well, yeah, like we don't have like a lease or an address or anything about him living in San Francisco, but that's where his mom
Thought he was
assumed
living.
that he was. And
Interesting.
I don't know if maybe he lied to her and said, "Hey, I'm living in San Francisco. I got a job," or maybe he was just like, maybe he did.
Maybe he just
zero
didn't
idea.
want anyone to know where he was. Who knows?
Could be. I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah.
But that's the crazy part is so when after the shooting, when they named him a person of interest, they end up contacting his mom about it. Mm-hmm. And she basically said that, well, I could see him doing something like this.
Interesting.
Which kind of makes you wonder, like, if your mom's saying that, then
Red flag.
well, not just that though. Is did you really have a good relationship with your mom?
Right.
Because your mom should
That
probably
kinda makes
not
sense
be
now,
throwing you
right.
under the bus. You know what I mean? So it's like, I gotta wonder.
Yeah, that's your mom.
Well, yeah. I mean, most people's mothers would be like, no chance. It wasn't my
Exactly.
kid, you know. But I gotta wonder what that relationship was
Wow.
like. I don't know.
Kind of makes sense now why they might have not spoken in months.
That does make sense. She was probably like, well, I kind of care about him, and if he's dead in a ditch, I want to know, or
Right.
you know, whatever.
So kind of going back to the beginning, his mom, I guess, said he was missing, right? And she contacted authorities. And what happened after that?
So, all right. Well, basically, we're gonna get into the actual events
Yep.
that we do know, like what the factual stuff is based on the evidence, the police investigation, whatever. And also, there are some gaps in the story because obviously we didn't follow his every footstep, so we don't know exactly what was going on. But we know he gets to New York City on a bus. 9:00 at night, November 24th. We know that bus came from Atlanta, so we know that he
Okay.
obviously wasn't from around there, but we don't know where he actually boarded. So like he could have gone on at Atlanta. He could have, that bus could have made a stop in Atlanta. We don't know. We just know that he got to New York by bus on November 24th. Between the 24th and the 30th of November for that week, no idea what he did. No idea. We don't know if he was just hanging out, having a good time, fucking checking out Central Park, Statue of Liberty, maybe. I don't know.
Being a tourist.
He just, yeah, it could be. Or maybe he was preparing. Maybe he got to New York and, maybe he got in contact with somebody to get a gun or
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. Well, I mean, we do know that when he was arrested, he had a gun on him. So there's that. I mean, there's certain things that you could allege, certain things that are just factual information based on what actually happened.
And then just, going over some of the things that we've learned. So we didn't know what he was doing for almost a week, right?
Yeah.
And then he checked into a hostel.
Well, also there
Right?
was a thing that I did read somewhere where it said that he checked into this hostel when he first got to New York, but then checked out the next day.
Okay.
But then, like almost a week later, checks back into this hostel. So
It almost seems like the events that took place and what he was doing almost kind of makes it seem like he wanted to be invisible, right?
well, yeah. So even when the hotel or the hostel, whatever that he checked into, he used a fake ID for, which
yeah.
they would later find on him when they arrested him in Pennsylvania. But yeah, so it did seem like, well, maybe I don't want to be, well known. I don't want it to be known that I'm hanging out here. It's not like I'm
Right.
staying at. He wasn't staying at prominent hotels and stuff like that. Maybe he had
Which
the money
that kind of
for it, maybe
indicates to me
didn't.
I don't want to be seen.
He
I
was
want
trying
to
to
be
be
invisible.
invisible. Yeah, exactly.
Because someone coming from a family like that, you don't really, you can stay wherever you want, right?
Well, assuming that he had any money left at this
Yeah.
point. Because, I mean, we don't know, again, we don't even know if he was employed after leaving TrueCar in 2023. So he might have just been unemployed living on whatever money he had left. Or he may have had, family credit cards that he used for everything. But
Right.
it's kind of weird that he showed up by bus and stayed at a hostel. Like, it kind of says that he was probably struggling for money at that point.
Yeah.
So he checks back into this hostel November 30th. So now he's been in New York for a week. He checks into this hostel. And then we don't really know what he does for the next 5 days. 4 days. 5 days?
And yeah, we don't know if he contacted anyone, hung out with anyone.
Yeah, so
nothing.
all we know is that December 4th, 5:34 is the next time we have any indication of what he's doing, and that's him leaving the hostel, and he takes an e-bike going to Midtown. So again, we don't know what he was doing between there and now. Maybe he had visitors, maybe he had somebody helping him out with something. No freaking clue. So November 4th, 5:34, he leaves the hostel. December 4th, 5:34 a.m., leaves the hostel. At 6:15, we know that he was in Midtown. He's recorded at a Starbucks buying a bottle of water, some granola bars. 4 minutes later, a camera catches him walking west on 55th Street. 10 minutes after that, 6:29 a.m., we see him walk past a parking lot on 54th Street. So these are these random cameras that just keep capturing. I mean, they were just kind of like trying to build the whole day, right? So they figure out where he was, what he was doing, so he's just walking back and forth at this point. And at some point, I got to wonder, was he like working up the courage? Did he know who he was looking for? Was he just pacing around waiting for the guy to show up? Like that. These are the things I want to know. Like, ideally,
I mean, he woke up, he went to get a bottle of water and some food from Starbucks. I mean, I don't, it's weird to me that you can go about your day, and I feel like he might have been calm. I don't know. You don't know. We don't know, because if I have anxiety over something, I'm not going to go have water and I'm not going to go eat something. You know what I mean? But that's just me.
But then that also begs the question, did he even plan this?
Yeah.
Was it like maybe he just happened to be just, going about his day and saw this dude and was like, wait a minute, this guy's the reason, that, the corporate America's all fucked up. And we don't know. We don't know if he planned it. We don't have any information outside of the small amount of evidence that we do. So there is some suggestion that it may have been premeditated, but I'll get into that in just a minute. So yeah, at 6:29, he's walking past this parking lot. At 6:38, so 9 minutes later, 6:38, we get him on camera again. He's at West 54th, and he's just leaning against the wall at the New York Hilton. Sits there for about 6 minutes. At 6:44 is when Brian Thompson crosses his path. He walked up behind him and allegedly shot him. So that's where I'm like, it may have been kind of premeditated, like where, he sits outside the hotel waiting for this guy. Like, I don't know but that's the other thing too, though, is if this was a premeditated thing, right? Like, how did he know where Brian Thompson was staying? How did he know at what point he was going to be leaving the hotel? Exactly. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of things that they don't quite
make
add
sense.
up. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Coincidence, chance. I mean,
well, and then the other thing is too, is it probably
does he usually get up this early and do all these things this early?
That's what, yeah, we don't know. Like, I don't, that's what I was, and then the other thing I was thinking is like, I'm curious actually, I don't know if we should probably look this up, but how far that New York hostel, can't remember the name of that place, but it was like the High New York hostel. How far is that from the hotel, from the New York Hilton Midtown? Like, was this a 5-minute bike ride or was this a 35-minute bike ride? Because obviously that's a lot different. If you just rode your bike 5 minutes down the street to go grab Starbucks, that's one thing.
So it's about 3.5 miles.
3.5 miles on an e-bike.
A little less than 3.5 miles, but yeah.
Probably not far.
No.
So.
If you're going by car, yes.
Well, yeah, but
Just
he's
from
on
experience of being in New York,
Yeah.
that will take you a while. But if you're on an e-bike, no, it shouldn't
but
take you that long.
5:30 in the morning on an e-bike.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably a very easy ride. But also, I've personally never been to New York, but I also imagine that there was probably a Starbucks a lot closer than 3.5 miles.
Oh, they're everywhere.
Yeah, so maybe that was the target. I don't know. Maybe that's where he meant to go. It's just, to me, the weird thing is how does this guy that doesn't really know, obviously, how would he have like Brian Thompson's schedule?
Yeah,
or
his itinerary, his schedule.
Yeah, like how would he know where he's staying? Exactly. How did
I
how
would
did he come
assume,
to find this out?
So with assuming a high level executive like that doesn't share that information with many people except for his assistant and only a few other executives.
Well, and so that's what I'm wondering is like maybe at some point he happened to cross paths with Brian Thompson and he overheard like, oh yeah, I'm going to be down at the Hilton Midtown. And
very rare that would happen.
I agree. But unfortunately, a lot of people are not very conscientious of what they're saying in public. You know what I mean?
And who's
like,
listening?
Yeah, he could have been freaking on a train somewhere and talking on a. Well, no, he's not going to be talking on a cell phone on a train, but maybe he's walking down the street talking on his cell phone, and somebody this guy overhears him and says, "Oh shit, now I know where this guy's staying." But then again,
there's just too many nuances, right? There's too many things that don't really add up.
Yeah, they don't.
You can't know all of that information.
Well, and not to mention, even if you did see this dude who's like telling you where he's staying and this and that, like, I mean, if I would have seen this guy on the street, I would have no idea that he's the fucking CEO of United Healthcare. Like, who would? You know what I mean? So it's like, it doesn't really add up. It's strange. I don't know, but anyhow, so 6:44, boom, boom, boom. Allegedly shoots Brian Thompson. And so, we even have and there's a video of it and all that too, where apparently the gun jammed, clears the jam, continues firing, whatever. So this thing happens, and then he takes off on foot into an alley. They find a cell phone in said alley. Apparently they somehow link it to him. Maybe it's the phone numbers he called. Maybe it was text messages. I don't know what the details of this are. I'm sure they're going to come out in the court case.
Right.
After that, we know he takes another e-bike, goes to Central Park. We then get him on camera exiting Central Park at 77th and Central Park West. Again, I really wish I had any kind of fucking reference as to where any of this stuff is. Like, did he traverse the entire park, or was it like, I have no idea.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 77th Street is near the Upper West Side, but I've only been to New York a couple of times. I don't really know it very well, but
I did read somewhere where basically a lot of this stuff was taking place in the Upper West Side. So that makes sense. But the funny thing is too, is I have no idea if the Upper West Side's the good part or the bad part of it.
It's a good part.
Okay, so
obviously it's different than the Upper East Side, but there's different types of areas everywhere. So
I got to go visit this place just to kind of get my bearings on what happened here. So yeah, they get him on video again, exiting Central Park, and we see him apparently ditch the e-bike and take a taxi at 86th and Columbus. Gets in a taxi, goes to the Port Authority bus facility by the George Washington Bridge. So apparently his idea was, okay, well, this is done now. I got to get the fuck out of here. Let me get on a bus. For whatever reason, he leaves the bus station and then goes to Penn Station, where he gets on a train to Philadelphia. So obviously he's getting the fuck out of Dodge, but he doesn't go very far. He just goes to Pennsylvania. So I don't know what's going through his mind at this point, but next couple of days, he's moving through Pennsylvania, goes from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. On December 8th is when so 4 days later, that's when they finally called his mom, and his mom was like, "Oh yeah, I could say that."
So remind me if we haven't talked about this, but how did they come to see that it was him, allegedly?
So, and this is the point that
That they would call his mother and say these things?
So I don't know how this comes about, and I don't know how they put all this together, because I know that in the video that was originally released of the actual shooting, dude's wearing a freaking, he's got a hood on, he's got a mask on. Like, you can't really see who this guy is.
Exactly.
You can see eyes. The strange part is somehow I don't know if they traced this back and found other videos of other, cameras where he's wearing the same clothes but not the mask or something, but they somehow come to say, hey, this is our dude. I don't know how. I mean, it could be. The funny thing is for a minute there, before the actual evidence started coming out, I was like, who says that this guy has anything to do with it?
Right.
You know what I mean? But then you get some evidence where you're like, shit, that's not looking good. We'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, so December 8th is when they finally kind of start putting things together. They have a name for this guy. They're like, well, it's this dude Luigi, and they, I guess, went through records, whatever, find that his mom had filed a missing persons report. They call his mom. His mom's like, oh yeah, I can see him doing that.
Wow,
must be batshit crazy. But I mean, the thing of it is it's kind of weird that his mom would just right away say that,
right,
unless he's been expressing some extreme views or just some
behaviors or
crazy
something.
behavior. Yeah. So I really got to wonder what was going on with that family dynamic before all this happened.
What transpired between them for it to get to that point where she would actually say that about her son.
Exactly.
Wow.
So for 5 days, he's out on the lam. December 9th, finally, 5 days after the shooting, he's spotted at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And somebody calls the police. They show up at the McDonald's. He gets arrested. So apparently, too...
Who calls the police? How do they even know?
Well, because they had put his picture all over the news and stuff.
He was wearing a hoodie and a mask, so...
Yes, but when the police basically... So at some point, the police said, well, this is our guy. Mm-hmm. And they started plastering his picture all over the place.
Right, okay.
But I don't know... Again, I don't know how they came to that conclusion.
Out. Yeah,
I don't know. There must have been some video of him without the mask on, but wearing the same clothes and stuff in the same vicinity. Mm-hmm. Or, something like that, to where they were like, oh, wait, this is our guy. Because otherwise... Kind of
putting two and two together and...
Yeah, because when I saw the video of him wearing that mask and hoodie, I was like, there's no way they're going to find this fucking guy. Like, he's a ghost, you know? But somehow they must have gone back through the videos of, maybe the Starbucks and maybe
I'm sure they did their due diligence before posting, plastering his pictures everywhere.
Exactly. Because, mistaken identity is one thing, but then also...
This is,
Yeah.
that type of crime, allegedly. So
yeah, exactly. So, and that's the funny thing is apparently when they walk up to him at the McDonald's and they start asking him questions, he hands the cop one of the fake IDs that he had used.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know what goes through his head where he's like, let me add, but maybe that's the thing is because his name was all over the news at that point. So maybe he was trying to act like he was not Luigi and trying to act like it was somebody else. But anyway, so when they catch him, he had the multiple IDs on him, and he had a Glock, which was a 3D printed frame. Of course, the news is gonna love using that fucking ghost gun term, but so basically what it is it's a 3D printed frame of a Glock firearm, and then you assemble it with pieces that you can buy that don't have serial numbers. So
you basically use that printed thing, to create one yourself.
Exactly. Essentially, This is a home build,
which is illegal.
Well, in some states, yeah.
Right?
In some states, you're still allowed to make your own guns without having serial numbers or registering or anything like that, because they're your own guns for personal use. But we don't know
what state he made that in.
We don't know what state. Plus, the other problem is that once you carry a firearm into certain states, like in New York, I don't think you're allowed to even possess a firearm
Right.
anywhere, like even in a locked container.
Each state has different laws regarding that. Yeah.
In some cities, like from what I've heard, New York City, you have to actually have a permit just to have a gun in the city. It doesn't even need to be
Right.
carried. Like
Yeah.
just a locked container gun,
Okay.
you need a permit for. So some places are super strict, and then obviously New York is one of those places. Pennsylvania, I believe, is also one of those places because they did charge him with having that 3D printed firearm.
Okay.
So yeah, so he has a 3D printed firearm, and I didn't even know you could do this, but he had a 3D printed silencer also. So I didn't know that was a thing.
So to
but-
someone who doesn't know much about these things, explain what a silencer would be.
well, very correctly, a suppressor.
So what I'm getting from that is that you add that on, right?
Yeah, so-
and it kind of shields most of the noise, or
So essentially, what happens is a suppressor is added to the end of the barrel of a gun, and what it does is it redirects and slows down those gases that propel the bullet, so that when those gases actually do leave the end of the suppressor, because now they're not leaving the end of the barrel, when they leave the end of that suppressor, they're slowed down enough to where the noise that they emit, instead of a loud pop or a loud explosion, is a softer pop or softer explosion.
okay.
yeah.
So
That's
going
technical,
back to
yeah.
what we were talking about as to why this happened, allegedly, you have to purchase these things, you have to print these things, and you have to make these things, right? So premeditated.
So,
right?
well-
you would then say
the suppressor
case,
the suppressor kind of hurts. Like if you said he had a 3D printed firearm on his person, I could say, well, maybe he was fucking protecting himself because he was living on the streets and he was scared that somebody was going to rob him, or somebody did.
right.
But then the suppressor adds that level of, why did you need a suppressor? You know what I mean? So it's like,
More thought out kind of a thing.
yeah, like the suppressor tells me that you were probably up to no good, because gun in and of itself doesn't tell me that you were intending on committing a crime,
Yeah.
but the suppressor does. The suppressor kind of says like, yeah, I was going to try to shoot at something or somebody without making a bunch of noise.
Yeah.
So yeah, he fucking allegedly shot this dude. In the video that I'm sure everybody has seen at this point, you can clearly see that firearm has a suppressor on it. Like that, it's pretty obvious. Even if you don't know what a suppressor is, you know that doesn't look like a normal pistol that he's holding. Like it's
Is it obvious if it's on?
yeah.
You could like
You
tell.
can see because it just looks like it has like a super long barrel. So if you watch that video again and pay attention to the gun, it's kind of obvious that it's on there.
Okay.
And so here's the funny thing too is while the investigation was still happening, while the manhunt was still happening, right? There's so much like false information coming out about, oh, this was the type of gun used, and it ended up being something completely different than what was actually used. At one point, I remember them talking about like, oh, we found a backpack in Central Park, but then that whole thing disappeared. Like all of a
Right.
sudden, the backpack was on him when they caught him in Pennsylvania. So it's like there was a bunch of stuff that I feel like was just maybe just not well known, or maybe they just kind of screwed up along the way and they're just kind of reaching for whatever they can find because they're dealing with a masked shooter.
Yeah.
But so they catch up with him. He's got all this stuff. Then the damning piece of evidence is he has this handwritten manifesto, a couple pages, where he's basically talking about how terrible corporate America is, and one part of it says something like these parasites had it coming or something like that, and it's like, fuck, dude, you just screwed yourself, because now even if you didn't commit this alleged crime, it looks very much like you did. You know what I mean? Like, even if maybe he was on his way to do something else, but it really looks like this guy fucking killed him. I don't know. Again, allegedly.
Right.
And then I'm sure you've heard of the well, maybe you haven't, but there was I know you didn't follow the story too closely, but the 3 shell casings that they found at the scene of the shooting, somebody had written deny, defend, and depose on the shell casings, which apparently...
Can you put things like that on casings?
Well, you could just take a
beforehand?
Sharpie and write them on there, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Apparently this has some reference to do with like the 3 Ds of denying insurance claims or some shit like that. So it's funny because it's like we're not sure if the motive for this was anti-corporate America or if it was anti-health insurance,
Or if it was something personal,
it could have been.
right? So, I mean,
There are rumors.
maybe with his back issues and then him just getting the treatment. I don't know. It could be
But
an array of different things,
he was not a customer of United Healthcare.
right?
If he was a customer,
why was Brian chosen, right? Like, why?
maybe he was an easy target for some reason. I mean, who knows?
It's just everything. Just I don't know. It doesn't make complete sense yet.
Well, but here's the thing too. Now that I'm thinking about this logically,
Or he just maybe wanted to start somewhere. I mean,
yeah,
you know?
Well, and United Healthcare is the largest insurance provider in the
Yes.
country.
And they have the most denied claims
They
from
by a
my
lot.
research with that provider. They have the most denied claims out of all the other healthcare companies.
Yeah, they're like, I think it's like 32 or 34% of the claims they deny, which is pretty fucking insane. Yeah.
That is insane.
It's pretty crazy. And like, I think the industry average is less than half of that. It's like 14% or 16%,
Wow,
some shit
wild.
like that. But yeah, so obviously, no, I was just thinking about it though. He could have, this information was probably actually on their website. They probably had some kind of like investor meeting or something. Cause I know they said that he was on it. Brian Thompson was on his way to a meeting. To a work meeting. So they probably had published something on their website talking about like maybe an investor meeting or a whatever board meeting or something like that, and where it was going to take place.
Generally, public companies, that's correct. Once they have earnings or any type of board meeting, it's usually on their website.
Yeah.
And they'll have it. But the thing is, they don't typically put where they're going to have these meetings. They don't. Just for safety reasons,
Yeah.
they don't put that information on there. They tell you what date it's going to be, but they're not going to tell you where. And
Well,
you know,
and I gotta wonder though. Again, people are loose-lipped, so maybe he wanted to do some research and found some employee,
or maybe he knows someone from the inside. Like I think that's what you're going to say.
Well,
Yeah.
I was gonna say like somebody, either somebody on the inside that hated their fucking boss and put them up to this, or somebody on the inside that was just casually posting on freaking LinkedIn or Facebook or something, being like, "Oh, just checked into our hotel at blah blah blah. Can't wait for this investor meeting tomorrow." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's
Can't
the thing
wait for the investor meetings.
well, and people are loose-lipped. People don't realize that
Yeah.
the things they say, like for example, and I've told you this
But
a
isn't
million
that
times.
sad though? That it's just
Yeah, that you can't
Yeah.
be. Well, but that's the thing is there's always fucking crazy people out there. No matter what you do, the crazies are out there. And when the crazies want to find information, they usually don't have to look very far. So like, for example, people that'll be posting while they're on vacation for, they'll literally post something on a public Facebook profile and be like, "Oh, can't wait to spend the next month in fucking Spain." And all of a sudden
Guilty.
everybody knows. Yeah.
everyone knows where you are.
Well, everybody knows that you're not at home, so now they know that your home is an easy target. Like it's like, and this has been, and this is why most people should probably keep their social media private. But that's a whole nother story. So ends up with so Luigi ends up getting arrested. We'll get back to the story really quick and just end it. He ends up with charges in New York, Pennsylvania, and federal charges. Yeah. 11 charges in New York, including apparently 3 counts of murder. They worded them differently. It's even though it's only one murder that's allegedly took
I was going to
place.
say that. How does that work?
So they apparently worded them differently. I think originally it was second-degree murder, and then so in New York you apparently can't charge somebody with first-degree murder unless it's like a terrorist act, a mass shooting, or like if the guy's a cop killer or something like that.
Okay.
But New York ends up charging him with murder that includes in furtherance of terrorism as a language. So basically labeling him as a terrorist, which upgrades it to first-degree murder. So because they wanted to get that first-degree murder conviction, that's why they upgraded.
And that's the only reason why they called it that.
Well,
Not-
they're
'cause
trying to make an argument that what he was what he's accused of was meant to like send a message kind of thing.
There's been a lot of those happening, these past couple of years, and those people didn't get the same treatment.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what's so different about this, and it could just be because of like
And
the,
I'm sure
the reaction that
and I'm
they've
sure
seen.
more news will come out, but that doesn't seem
Yeah. So well,
correct.
I wouldn't call that a terrorist act, but then again, they must have a reason for this, and obviously they think that it's going to stick. Otherwise, they wouldn't be using that as a charge.
I guess we'll see.
So yeah, so these 11 total charges in New York. There's some gun charges in there, whatever, too, and then I think like even a stalking charge. Yeah, no, they really hit him with everything they could. 4 federal charges, one of them being murder with use of a firearm, which, if convicted, makes him eligible for the death penalty. Kind of weird that.
So he's being tried in 3 different states?
Well, he's being tried at the federal level, yeah, and in New York and in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania hit him with 5 charges, including the fake ID and the gun charge. So,
Okay.
and I don't know why they're deciding to do it that way versus just New York hitting them with all the different charges. And just
How does that
wrapping it
even
up.
work when you have different states?
I don't know.
like that?
But
And
I mean, the federal charges basically come in there because now once he crossed state lines, it becomes a federal thing too. So it's like, I don't know. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out and I don't know what court cases are going to come first or whatever, but I would assume that a conviction in one court is going to help a conviction in the next. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see how they play that, like where they're going to start and who's going to be the first to put him up on trial, and then see like kind of what happens
do
from
we
there.
have an idea of when his trial is going to start, or?
I have no idea.
No.
I didn't get that far. But the crazy thing is just want to leave you with this one because this is kind of interesting. It's gotten to the point, and obviously, the reaction that social media and kind of, I guess most of the internet has had to this, where people are like, oh, he's a hero. It's gotten to the point where they actually, and I can't remember if this was in New York or I think this was just in New York. It might have actually been a Homeland Security thing, but they're basically labeling people as like almost like possible domestic terrorists if they express views agreeing with what happened. So yeah,
No.
it's fucking crazy. Like they're basically
No.
saying like, if you're okay with what happened, then you should be on a government watch list because you're a scary fucking individual.
Not condoning violence, but no. Like,
I mean, here's the thing though, and obviously everybody's a little different, but
Right.
I personally would just not post about stuff like that on the internet.
Exactly. And
Like
just,
one way or the other. Like I just wouldn't just, stay the fuck out of it. You don't need to post your opinion. Like that's honestly, I feel like there's a lot of that going on where everybody just wants to say how
not
they
everything.
feel.
Yeah, no, that's true.
But it's like sometimes just stay out of it, especially when you're talking about murder. Like just don't just stay out of
Alleged.
it. Just alleged murder. Well, I mean, obviously the guy was murdered.
Yeah.
I'm not saying who allegedly murdered
Yeah.
him, but yeah, like it's just like sometimes just stay the fuck out of it. Just mind your own fucking business and
I
just be
think
done.
people are very passionate about certain things, and I don't blame them.
Well, I get that, but it's just it's a bit much sometimes.
But I get what you're saying, for sure.
Well, like you remember too, like there were people that were getting fired left and right because they were making stupid comments on social media, like about COVID, about elections, about abortions, about all this different shit. Like people were expressing their views, and all of a sudden their jobs were like, well, we can't have you associated with us, and firing people. Like your words have
then,
real
a whole different
consequences.
topic, freedom of speech and all those things.
course.
So
Well, and-
that's a whole different topic that we would have to discuss. But that also,
Well, yeah, but at the same time, it's like, I truly 100% believe in the freedom of speech, but I also believe that the speech also has consequences.
of course.
So it's like, yeah, say whatever the fuck you want, but don't be surprised. Like,
Yeah.
I can walk up to somebody and, curse his entire family name. I'm totally within my right to do that, but it's also within his right to just punch me in the face. Like, it's just, things have consequences. So just be careful of what you're saying, be wary of what you're doing, and don't be an idiot. That's all it really
Yep.
comes down to.
I guess we'll see what happens, and we'll keep you guys posted as we
Probably
get more
not.
information.
Probably
But
not. I'm not doing a revisit. I don't think there's going to be.
I'm sure you'll see what's happening, and
I don't think there's going to be enough information. Well, maybe.
I'm sure there will be in the next coming months or coming year.
I think once the trial's over,
Yeah.
maybe we'll do like a full recap
Yeah.
of basically the whole thing, just with all the information that we come to find out through the trial. But yeah, we'll see how it turns out. I mean, it'll be, like I said, it'll be interesting to hear the details.
Absolutely.
But
Alrighty.
cool. Thanks for listening.
Thank you all.
All right, bye.